This is the Fengineer with more thoughts on solving Forrest Fenn's The Thrill of the Chase. This week, we're keeping it simple. What you can do with just 4 hints and then some bonus material. Louisiana. Well, how do we get there? Well, we started in Mississippi with Forrest Fenn's old bat story with Miss Ford and his father. And in Gypsy Magic, Forrest was thrilled with the girls dancing around the campfire, and that reminded me of that Cajuns and Creoles and Gypsies were all distinct cultures in southern Louisiana. And Mississippi, well, maybe that reference to Mississippi in the old bat story meant the Mississippi River, not necessarily the state of Mississippi. So that got my interest started in Louisiana. What can we do with that? Forrest was looking for Lewis and Clark, but what was Lewis and Clark looking for? Well, President Thomas Jefferson sent Lewis and Clark out west to explore the Louisiana Purchase after the United States bought it in 1903 from France. And at that time, Britain owned the Pacific Northwest and Spain owned the Southwest. So it's not really a huge leap of logic to say, hey, let's put this Louisiana Purchase on a map. And what can we learn from that? Well, the Louisiana Purchase extended from the Mississippi River to the westward side of the Mississippi River drainage basin, and from mid Colorado north, that coincided with the Continental Divide, and they split the Continental Divide from mid Colorado, went south through New Mexico, and the drainage basin of the Mississippi just skirted by Santa Fe on the western side, not 8.5 or 8.25 miles north, but on the western side, very close, and then down to Louisiana. So the western border of the Louisiana Purchase in the North Rocky Mountains is the Continental Divide. Now, a little more backstory. This whole issue started with explorers coming over to North America, and France actually ceded the Louisiana Purchase to Spain in 1762, and then Spain sold it back to France in 1800. But in neither of those times did they really have a good description of or understanding of what the actual drainage basin was. So when France sold it to the United States in 1803, Spain protested, and it wasn't until 1819 that Spain and the U.S. Settled this border dispute, and Spain ended up keeping the red areas, which reduced the size of the Louisiana Purchase. Now, that's not too difficult to find out by just Googling on Wikipedia. So if you were to start and say, well, our search area should be the Louisiana Purchase, and you understood this extra bit that some of these areas were subtracted out, already you could have eliminated southwest Wyoming, west and southwest Colorado, and all of New Mexico. And then recognizing that the 4+1 Meadowlark story indicated the 41 degrees of latitude, which is the southern border of Wyoming, and that the meadowlark is a state bird of Wyoming. So you should focus in on Wyoming. I mean, that your search area's getting a lot smaller already with just 2 clues. I presented this material previously, but there was some confusion about it, I heard. So my thought on not the actual Where Warm Waters Halt, but a hint to Where Warm Waters Halt, relates to The Wizard of Oz, which I believe there's many references to in The Thrill of the Chase. So the Good Witch of the North, her realm is Galican, which to me sounds an awful lot like Gallatin. And the Wicked Witch of the West halts at the edge of her realm, so she halts at Gallatin. And then there's also these references to the lions I've discussed before, so many references to The Wizard of Oz. So let's plot these up. We've now got 3 clues. We've got the Louisiana Purchase area, which says we're north and east of the Continental Divide. were in either Wyoming or Montana and were somewhere in the vicinity of the Gallatin Mountain Range. And our fourth clue, as I've presented before, is the 12 degrees of declination. And I believe because of the way that the postmarks are written and many places in the text where it talks about after midnight and then reflecting after midnight, that means westward of the 12-degree declination line on the poem poster. So we've narrowed our search area to this, and I'm excluding Montana because, of course, we know now that it's in Wyoming. But even if we didn't, I mean, the Meadowlark story was a pretty strong indication that it likely was in Wyoming. So that's our four clues, and now we'll get on with the rest of my proposed Glen Crreek solve. In the important literature section, Forrest had trouble with the clerk, and he thought that possibly the clerk was on something and it wasn't Ovaltine. And I always thought this was a hint, but it took me a while to figure it out. Ovaltine was originally called ovomaltine, with the ovum meaning egg, and because it was originally an egg malt drink. And if you're on an egg or on an egg, on an ovum, then you would be a chicken or a hen. And the biddies that are holding up the line, I learned that actually in the early 1900s, the term biddies actually did mean chickens. People use that word to describe chickens. And the most popular chicken before in the U.S. before World War II was this Plymouth Rock breed, which was a great breed for both eating and egg production. And when I thought of Plymouth Rock, I thought of Pilgrims. And searching around in the Western U.S., I was able to find two references to Pilgrims. And I couldn't find any really references to Plymouth. But the two references to Pilgrim were Pilgrim Creek, Montana, and Pilgrim Creek, Wyoming. So here's our search area in red, and I've noted the Pilgrim Rhine, which falls just right through Mammoth and just west of the left thumb of Yellowstone Lake. And then I've added sixth clue, which is the latitude from the poem syllables minus the words, and that falls right in this area. In my last video, I explained that where warm waters halt is Obsidian Cliff, and you take it in the canyon down, moving north to Mammoth Hot Springs, past the Sheep Eater Cliff, and you end up at Fort Yellowstone, which is the home of Brown, because that's where Oscar Brown was the superintendent. He was the one that proposed the idea of the Roosevelt Arch at the north entrance. Also interesting to note that there's right in the Fort Yellowstone and the Mammoth area, there's this Juniper Street. There's many references in the Thrill of the Chase to junipers, and I've long tried to figure out this clue. Is it actually like referring to specifically juniper trees, and where do juniper trees grow, and all that? And I finally found this reference that the main drag through the fort used to be Juniper Street, and now it's kind of a back road because they moved the road a while back. But I found that very interesting. And then this Mount Everts, which is a reference, one of the main poems in The Thrill of the Chase, is written by this Texas poet Everts. And then I added the township and range to this figure. And there's many references in The Thrill of the Chase to this 2-to-1 ratio, or zero population growth is 2.1 children for the biddies, or how they crafted the horseshoes by measuring the horse's hoof and timesing it by 2 and adding 1 was a very specific reference to this 2-to-1. And if you look at these township and range numbers, township 57 north, range 115 west in the southwest quadrant there, 57 times 2 plus 1 is 115. So I had previously shown that there were other 2-to-1 references like the county numbers in Wyoming, the Teton County, or Park County, I'm sorry, was 11, and Teton County was 22. And so, we're starting to see a lot of these 2-to-1 connections right in this specific area. I showed in my prior video that there were many connections in the Thrill of the Chase to the city of Oxford, England, which is known as the City of the Dreaming Spires, and I believe that's a reference to the area of Yellowstone National Park called the Hoodoos, which are flat top rocks. The geologists call those damsels coiffes, ladies with hairdos, and these drawings of the biddies in the Thrill of the Chase have flat top hairdos, and there's many other connections. And I ended that video suggesting possibly that, maybe the Hoodoos was no place for the meek. I don't think so. I think this is all true, but I think this is a general area reference to no to the solve, and not specifically, something you could jump to and say this exactly is no place for the meek. That skips a lot. It's not allowing you to skip over where warm waters halt, or Homer Brown or any of that. Well, let's dive into the next stanza. We're all familiar with it. Really, the semicolons caught my eye. Proper use of a semicolon is that there's only one in a sentence. And this stanza is unique because it has two. That got me thinking that there must be three distinct elements to this. So the first one would be no place for the meek and is drawing nigh. The second thing would be no paddle up your creek, and the third thing is heavy loads and waters high. So that looks like three lines to me. What if we could get some more lines to converge? I'm suggesting the end of drawing nigh is Kidney Lake because of Forrest Fenn's kidney cancer. And certainly death was drawing nigh for him. He felt like death was drawing nigh for him at that time. And no place for the meek is Cathedral Rock because Forrest Fenn's church is the river bottoms and mountains where dreams and fantasies play. But real devout churchgoers, which is one term for the meek, their place is in church, not hanging out under Cathedral Rock. So this is no place for them. And no paddle up your creek. Well, I'm thinking that's Glen Crreek in Golden Gate Canyon. Glen, Fenn, his name means everything. And that's a line in and of itself, because a creek is a line. You don't need 2 points like for the other parts of this stanza. Heavy loads. I think that could be Snow Pass, which was the original pack trail before the Kingman Pass trestle was constructed in 1884. Water high. How about Bunsen Peak? Robert Bunsen was a geologist who did the original pioneering work to understand the theories of how geysers function. And another bonus water high could be this aqueduct. There's apparently an aqueduct that runs up on the bank of Golden Gate Canyon and Glen Crreek that takes water into some of these utility ponds in south of Fort Yellowstone. I presented previously how you could use the syllables minus the words in the main treasure poem to get some useful information, a potential latitude, as well as sort of a magic number, 22. Well, let's see if we can do the same thing in Ode to Peggy Jean. And it's important to realize that the Ode to Peggy Jean follows the exact same format as the treasure poem. It really is 8 words and syllables, idealized structure of 8 words and syllables per line, 4 stanzas, 4 lines per stanza. So they're very much the same. So if we count those up like we did before, we get 110 words and 128 syllables, and we break those out, by stanza and line. And we only have four numbers this time because there's four stanzas at 54, 45. What can we do with that? Well, maybe since we already have seen previously in the treasure poem that this is 44 degrees, and we know that this Ode to Peggy Jean poem has four stanzas and four lines. That's a hint to 44, so we don't want to need to repeat that. So we could call this latitude 44, 54, 45. So let's put that on the map, and falls slightly to the north of the previous latitude that we got from the treasure poem. And if you look careful along, I searched along that line, and it falls exactly on Tower Junction's Roosevelt Lodge. What can we make of that? I presented previously how the Totem Cafe caper, I believe, references some comics from the 1930s that seemed like the type of thing Forrest Fenn would be interested in as a boy. They're specifically referencing the evil villain, the Ultra Humanite, and Superman. And we all know that Superman had telescopic sight. I mean, ultimately, he got all kinds of extra powers, X-ray vision, laser eyes. I mean, all kinds of things. But in the original version, he only had telescopic eyesight. Uh, I did some research on the is Terry. Terry as a name, if you Google it, is gives you a German reference to Theodoric, and that I think is Theodore. And scant is short, so a short Theodore. Well, that's a clear reference to Teddy Roosevelt. So Terry Scant with Marvel Gaze means look for your short Theodore with your telescopic vision. And what could we be looking for if we had telescopic vision? Where could we see a short Theodore? Well, we've got the Teddy Roosevelt Arch to the north and the Teddy Roosevelt Lodge to the east along our line of 44 degrees, 54 minutes, and 45 seconds. So I've shown these two lines crossing, and I think the uh, latitude yellow line through Roosevelt Lodge is more of an area hint because Forrest didn't want to give it, even if you solve that, he didn't want to like give it away. I'm not saying the treasure is where these two lines cross, but I think that indicates if you found that latitude in the poem and figured out that that crossed at the Roosevelt Lodge, then you would know to put this other yellow line in that falls north south that goes through the Roosevelt Arch. And so focusing in on this a little bit, so we've got this, if we were in this vicinity of the treasure below Cathedral Rocks and Golden Gate Canyon, you would, it'll be a clue for you to look to the Roosevelt Arch from the treasure location. And then, if you imagined you could see that, then look quickly down your quest to cease. And again, that's in the Golden Gate Canyon. I'm not suggesting anybody go off the trail to go search for this thing, but that's all I'm proposing, and I'll have more information next week. This has been the Fengineer. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.